Hello and welcome. My name is Evgeny Rusakov and you're watching TVP World, interview from Vilnius. Iran is once again at the center of global attention amid renewed protests, growing internal tensions and rising international uncertainty around the country's future. To discuss what is really happening inside Iran, how these events differ from previous uprisings and what they could mean for the region and the world, we are joined today by Šarūnas Liekis, political scientist from Vytautas Magnus University. Šarūnas, thank you for joining us today, sir. Glad to see you in our studio.
Thank you for inviting.
Firstly, what's your take on what's been happening in Iran recently?
Generally, we don't have much information. We have many rumors, we have many bots from different institutions, floating around and spreading very often, AI images from Iran. However, the real knowledge is not here. Iran right now, general population is being disconnected from internet. Very few, notices, information, images are coming from Iran. That there were, the fact is that there were disturbances. We know that the disturbances took place. The reasons for these disturbances were economic, of economic nature. And they started in the West, where predominantly Kurdish traders moving between Iraq and Iran. And as we know, the Kurds were this element which basically started the rioting. So the Kurdish political element, most probably military, because a lot of illegal arms trade is going between Iraq and Iran, though Iran is trying constantly to control it. So we have events that started on an economic basis, but then there are many parties which are interested in making it political. So suddenly the shift moved from, in terms of aims, from economic problems to regime change. So this is basically the picture, and a lot of, we have many conversations around. We know the US reaction, which is relatively reserved. It does not mean that US will not intervene in the future, but for the moment, they understand probably and calculate the consequences. It seems that even Israelis are not very much willing, to join.
We will come back to US for sure. I have another question. How does today's events differ from what happened in Iran in 1979?
Then, we have to remember that under Shah Pahlavi, basically it was not very kind of human rights promoting regime. This was, one-man show. This was politically, authoritarian dictatorship, you can say, though it's inherited, dictatorship. Amnesty International in '75, they counted a few 100,000 political prisoners in Iran at the same time. And right now, it's interesting, on the basis of human rights violations in Iran, somebody suggests once again the same dynasty to run the country. So this is very contradictory in itself. 79 was a real change, systemic change, because we got the new type of regime, new economic system, so-called based on Islamic economics, and the constitution which was approved in '79 basically establishes theocracy, or they call it theocratic democracy.
Yeah.
And for now, I don't foresee something similar to '79.
Okay, again, let's talk about Iran and Europe. So if the protests in Iran are for democracy, as some people claim, then why has Europe's response been so limited? And in general, what kind of consequences will we have here in Europe if something really drastic happens over there?
If something happens drastic, I start from the
Sure.
from the second part of the question. So we'll have serious interruptions with the gas and oil supplies for sure, because if a major war starts in the region, because right now, the Russian oil is basically very difficult to access, and the resources from Russia are reaching EU, in very limited scale. And one of the major sources is the Middle East. So if the Middle East erupts, suddenly if we have, major war in the Middle East, and usually this war would most probably would involve all the other participants. Plus, in the present context of all the problems with international law, human rights around the world, probably European politicians are not eager very much to stress on the human rights, because they understand that it would be read as a kind of double standards, because nobody would take them seriously. So I think the Europeans are facing the dilemma to be trustworthy, plus they have a lot of international law issues related to the actions of Trump's administration, their position in the global politics. And I think in principle they are afraid to be sidelined, marginalized by these events, which might push them for the choices they are not willing to do.
So again, you've mentioned the US, and here's the question then. So Donald Trump previously supported anti-government protests in Iran, later refused to strike the country. And okay, let's not talk about whether it was his own decision or Arab states and Israel tried to persuade him not to do that. I don't think it's very important. In your opinion, what has happened and why?
I think apart from lobbying, and you mentioned probably lobbying the countries from the region, they were trying to prevent the conflict, because they understood that it might be a major blow to all of them. Regarding the industries, exports, also might create all kinds of social tensions in these countries, in this region generally, and might start another Arab Spring. We don't know. I mean, what might happen, because all these regimes are not very stable. Very often, I would say.
By the way, does the West? Is the West afraid of new Arab Spring?
I don't think so. I mean, right now they are not concerned about that. They have other troubles, I think. But
sure they do.
But at the moment, the troubles are kind of being part of the regime psyche in all the Arab countries, because they had experience in 2011, 2012. The Arab Spring, and they were really concerned. They were afraid about the stability of their own regimes. Right now, everything can happen. I mean, anything can happen if we have a major war in the region, and Iran will not succumb without a major war, for sure. And we saw, what happened during the 12-day war between Israel and Iran. So this was the first kind of direct encounter between Iranians and Israelis. So the consequences might be very difficult for all the participants. So most probably this was one of the reasons why Trump backed up. And probably this is related also because he needed easy victory,
like in Venezuela.
Like in Venezuela. Because otherwise, if he gets into the situation where he needs, has major debacle in the region, it will not add any of the, let's say, benefits. No wonder that right now he shifted to Gaza question. I mean, once again, Gaza, the border of Gaza
and Greenland.
And Greenland. So much easier targets than Iran.
Okay, since we've spoken about Venezuela, I cannot leave without mentioning Venezuela plus Russia plus all the rest. So Russia did not support Venezuela and Iran during the escalation of the conflict with the US. So What do you think about this?
When we look at Trump's and the U.S. administration's rhetoric, they spoke about, rather bluntly, about the sphere of influence, Western Hemisphere as their sphere of influence. And concept-wise, it does not contradict what, for example, Putin was speaking for many, many years. I mean, in different formats, in different conferences, and their demands they were put against for a NATO organization, for example, in 21. So it does not, what Trump is declaring right now, it does not contradict what Russians want, what Putin wants. So naturally, most probably, we don't know what was agreed in Alaska, but most probably there is a kind of even unwritten probably agreement that, you don't go into our sphere of influence, we don't go into...
Do you think this might really happen? Do you think they discussed something like this in Alaska?
Most probably yes, about
at
the concept level. Naturally, they might attempt, to cross into each other's territory if somebody violates their interest. I mean, you saw the situation, for example, with this, with the shipping in the North Sea. And the way Americans took over this Marinera, with the Russian flag. So, but immediately they had released, the Russian crew members of the ship. So 2 of them. The rest 20 were Ukrainians apparently, and 6 were Georgians. I mean, nobody wants to talk in public about that, but apparently.
But
that's the reality. So they immediately released the Russians. So I think generally from different signals, and because both sides play, the game of escalation. So and the rules are rather clear. I mean, very well put, and it's studied at the, the military academies. It's studied at the institutions that are preparing future diplomats. So both of them, they know the rules of the game. So from what I see, if you read the language, and the gestures. So I think they understand what they are doing and, very careful escalating what they're escalating,
All I do understand is that it's really, really hard, and really, really getting really, really hot in here, in this area, in this region. That's
well. One of the reasons is basically the way they're handling, the major players are handling their affairs. And suddenly those who, we're playing according to the different rules. They are left and sidelined.
Okay, Šarūnas, my last question briefly. So, again, coming back to Iran. So there were mass protests in 1999, 2009, 2019, then in 2022, 2023. So now we are seeing it again. So do you think the current political regime will survive in general?
I mean, when you look, at the scale of, to take into perspective. I mean, if you take what is going on in the United States in Minnesota somewhere, with the migration officers and, people being shot, etc., the scale, or, disturbances in Paris. So, with yellow jackets. Where hundreds of thousands of people participated. So how is different? It's probably different at the level of violence. But if somebody was starting to shoot from the crowd into the police officers, probably we would have the same level of violence. So, if you take everything into perspective, there is no sound and good regime economically. So economics and social tensions, political tensions are present all over in every country. To what extent it can turn into the regime change, this is another matter. This is a matter of moment, very often. I would say the elements or societal elements and political elements which are willing to change, to make a change in the system, then you can have it. And but overall, I don't think that this time will be different in Iran than it was in previous times.
Okay, let's see how the things turn out. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you for
coming to our studio. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would like to remind our viewers that our guest for today was Šarūnas Liekis, a political scientist from Vytautas Magnus University. You're watching TVP World. Stay with us.